for the city of Raleigh. What we do is conduct hearings on applications for certificates of appropriateness, and I think everyone within the sound of my voice knows that. Here's a few pieces of information to outline the steps we've taken to be sure that everyone is protected and due process rights are taken care of as we proceed. First of all, we're proceeding in accordance with statutes passed by the General Assembly in Session Law 2020-3, allowing for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during the ongoing
We will just wait until Mr. Fountain is able to pop back on. Hi, everybody. If you can just give us a few more minutes, Mr. Fountain is restarting his computer.
Okay, sorry, folks. Not sure what went wrong there. The terrible part of it is that I'd read out all that red tape and boilerplate stuff, not knowing that I'd gone away. But in any event, what I was covering was that we've given notice of the use of this online platform, and in addition to all the notices that we would have posted on the property anyway if we were having actual live meetings instead of virtual meetings. And so we have done all of that, and everyone on the program today has agreed to proceed in that way and has provided their written material in advance. And you can go on the city's website and find all the material that anybody has submitted. And everyone was also asked to turn in an oath in advance, but we'll swear everybody as we get to each matter anyhow. So we're at the place now where I want to ask everybody to introduce themselves and describe why it is that they are on this committee. And I'll start off with me. I'm Nick Fountain. I'm a lawyer by training, and I live in a really historic landmark, and I'm the chairman of this COA committee for this year. And so next I'll call on Janine McCullough.
All right, thank you. I'm Janine McAuliffe, and this is my second term as commissioner on the COA committee, and excited to be here. I am an architect by education and work as a residential designer here in Raleigh.
All right, thank you. And John Reese.
Hi, I'm John Reese. I'm an architect. I live in the Brooklyn neighborhood, and an architect by trade and a guest house owner by design.
All right, thank you. Versailles Height.
Versailles, you're muted.
Hi. Okay. Is that better?
That's better.
All right. Hi, I'm Versailles Height. I'm also an architect practicing in the Raleigh area. I live actually in an area called Midtown East now, so in the sort of northern part of downtown Raleigh. And I mostly practice commercial and public architecture.
Thank you for that. And Harold Millette, why don't you tell us about you?
Okay, can you hear me? All right. My name is Harold Millette. I'm an architecture designer in the Raleigh area. I am born and raised here and have always had an interest in the growth of the city and how things develop.
Thank you for that. And Francis Raspberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Francis Raspberry is the name. I'm with Cawley Pridgeon Law Firm, and I'm legal counsel to the committee.
Okay, everybody should have the agenda, and I'm going to seek a motion to approve the agenda in a moment, but I want to firstly note that we have summer proceedings today. We have 2 of those, and I'll remind everyone that summer proceedings are matters that are thought to be routine, but are obliged to be approved by this body. And unless there are objections, we'll approve those without a full-blown evidentiary hearing. Is there anyone on the committee or anyone in the audience who believes that we should go to these and hear them more fully? I'll call out the addresses. One is 605 East Lane Street. One is 405 East Franklin Street. And one is 914 Dorothea Drive. Is there anyone who wishes to have those matters heard more fully? Okay.
Mr. Fountain.
Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda the way it was submitted. Janine McAuliffe makes that motion, and there is a second from Versailles Height. And all in favor, please say aye. Or raise your hand. Yeah, all right, I see everyone's hand go up, including mine, so the agenda is approved. And what I would do now with respect to the summary proceedings is to I'll call each of them in turn, and we will have a motion to approve those. And so with respect to 605 East Lane Street, an application to enlarge a rear screen porch and alter some piers. Could I have a motion, Janine, to accept the staff comments as findings and approve the application in accordance with staff recommendation?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? John Reese seconds that motion. All in favor, say aye. All right, great. Thank you. Doing better than me. Raising your hands is better. And so that was approved unanimously. We'll go to the next one, 405 East Franklin Street. Can I have the same motion, Ms. McAuliffe? All right, she makes a motion that we accept the staff findings and approve the application in accordance with staff recommendations. Is there a second to that? Mr. Reese makes a second, and I'll call for a vote on that. Everyone raise a hand in favor of the motion. All hands went up, including mine. That one carries. The next one's 914 Dorothea Drive. And Ms. McAuliffe moves that we accept the findings, the recommendations of staff as findings of fact, and the proposed action as the action of the committee. Is there a second to her motion? Mr. Reese raises his hand again, seconds that motion. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. All hands went up. That motion carried unanimously, and we're now done with the summer proceedings. And if that's the only reason you came today, then you don't have to stay anymore, but we're glad to have you, even though we can't see you. And so bye-bye. Next one is an application that is being brought back from last month, and that is 401 East Whitaker Mill Road. And with that, Mr. Duca and Colette, if you will if you was to, I want to swear you at this point, and as a matter of fact, I guess we could swear all the staff at this time, so we don't have to do it every time from here. But Mr. Duca and staff, do you and each of you swear the testimony you're about to give to the members of the board of matter being heard will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do when I call your name. Mr. Duca?
I do.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Canang?
I do.
Ms. Morton?
I do.
And Ms. Tully?
I do.
All right, thank you, everyone, for that. Now, would staff remind us what this application is about?
But here I will remind you as soon as the slideshow pops up. All right, so this is case 0085-2020 for 401 East Whitaker Road. It is the Wake County home, a Raleigh historic landmark. You may remember that this was at last month's meeting and was deferred. The request is to replace window sashes, replace windows, and remove storm windows. Next slide. As a reminder, this is a view of the property from Whitaker Mill Road. Next slide. This is a closer view of that front entrance. Next slide. Another view of the front. Next slide. A view on the other side of the front circle. Next slide. And the view from Pine Drive, which is to the west. Next slide. And staff's suggestion is to make a determination on the historic status of the window sashes. If it is determined that they are historic, discuss the replacement of all window sashes on the structure in light of the historic character and condition, and to approve removal of the storm windows.
Mr. Duca, we would love to hear from you. We know, that it was carried over from last month, and you know that we were concerned about the condition of the windows and the question of whether they were beyond repair and the like, and we would very much appreciate additional information from you that would help us in our work.
Yes, thank you again for discussing our case again today. And we work closely with staff, and we have the latest report from them. And it seems that probably the most important thing at this point is to determine if the existing sashes are an historic feature or not. And we look very closely into this. We check them inside, outside, took them out of the frame. And I think we believe we have several clues that are making us confident the existing sashes currently installed are not belonging to the original building built in 1914. So if you would allow me, I would go very briefly and describe what clues we found. So
please go ahead.
Thank you. So first of all, the glass. The glass in the existing sashes is a float glass, which was not manufactured until 1950s. The original glass from 1914 would have visible waves or irregular surfaces, which are not present in the float glass that we have now in the windows. Another clue refers to the sash configuration itself. The profile of the meeting rails are not the same as an historic window. The existing rail profile has vertical faces with a slot cut into the meeting faces with a flexible weather stripping, which is a contemporary feature design. An historic window, we believe, would have a slightly slanted meeting face with no weather stripping or with felt or copper weather stripping surface attached to the slanted face. So we don't have that in the windows today. Another reason is the bottom of the sashes has also a groove with a flexible weather stripping insert. An historic window, again, would have no weather stripping or felt or copper weather stripping surface applied to the underside of the sash. If we look to some of the pictures that we provided, you're probably going to notice that the styles of the sashes are milled with a profile that matches the profile of the plastic gem liner. This differs substantially from the profile of an historic window with flat sides and the groove routed for the counterweight cord, as probably the original window was designed in 1914. So overall, visually, there is absolutely no evidence that the sashes have been modified or restored in the past. And we strongly believe, we are confident that they are probably new sashes added at one point in time, replacing the original wood sashes. So that was very briefly what we found and about the sashes. And again, we believe they are not an historic feature of the building. And not being an historic feature, we requested to have them replaced with an absolutely identical design, matching material, color, size. Everything will replicate identically what is currently there. So that was very briefly what we found and what we would like to respectfully request. I would love to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Are there questions of the applicant from members of the committee? Jeanine McAuliffe.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for providing for us all that additional information and your findings out there. I thought that was very helpful. One thing as I read through the last materials that we were provided, I'm seeing that you are proposing the window sashes and window replacement windows to be matching exactly, as you said, the design dimension, detail, color, and material. I am actually just having, I'm just trying to find exactly what that material is, because I know you're not proposing wood. And I don't know why I'm missing that, but could you go into a little detail on that?
It's actually wood. We are proposing the new window sashes will be wood. Sorry for not being so clear in my notes.
Well,
that will be wood, yes.
Thank you for saying that. I saw somewhere, and I, because this has come through a couple times, I'm trying to make sure I'm finding the resources here, but it does say on the document dated August 5th, under proposed new upgrades, that funds available will not allow the owner to replace the windows with new historically correct all wood window units. But could you just kind of clarify for me how that's different than what you're saying you're doing?
So our intention again is to replace just the sashes, not the frame or the window sill. It's just it's a double hung type of window. So the sash frame, the new frame will be, like I mentioned before, made entirely of wood, as we have it today, and will replicate exactly the size, like I said, profile, dimensions of what is currently installed.
Okay, so let me be clear. You're saying it's the sash replacements you're distinguishing that between an entirely new all wood window and frame. Is that what you're saying?
The frame will remain. We are not replacing the frame.
Just the sash replacements. Okay.
Yeah, just the sash replacement. Exactly. The sash, the frame, the window sill, all the interior and exterior trim will remain. Will be probably renovated, repainted, but we're not going to touch that. We're not going to take it out.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm.
So I think Janine, I see on the page one, the one that has the picture of the historic marker on it. Matter of fact, they say they don't have the money to do all new windows anyways, so they're just trying to do the sashes up, if I understand correctly.
That's correct. Yes, just the
John
sashes.
John Reese has questions.
Okay. I'm listening to your words very carefully. And even in the last page of the sash replacement system from the manufacturer, it never mentions what these windows or their finished surface is. And from the picture, I don't see these as wood sashes. I see these as vinyl clad or aluminum clad sashes. And in what you've said is that granted can't afford you say you can't afford the wood windows units. You don't say they can't afford new wood sashes. And never once do you mention anything about wood, even in the drawings. Because when I went back and looked at the details, you're very specific about the frames and everything else being wood, but when it points to the actual window sash itself, there's no material presentation. And I get the sense that we're not being told exactly what's going on here.
Mr. Duca, can you?
I'm really sorry if the information is not very clear. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, my question is, are the sashes made, or are they the finished surface of them wood? Of the sashes?
Yes, they are 100% wood, painted wood. Yes. No question about it.
Mr. Reese, Tanya Tully here. May I say something?
Yeah.
What I was going to say, if you still have some question and you do decide to approve it, you can make a condition that, section drawings that are clear be provided to and approved by staff if you think that you need additional comfort in that regard.
Well, it's not so much the details that it's the labeling on it, because nowhere in that drawing does it specifically say a wood sash, and but everything else in the drawing notes wood or painted something or other. But this sash is it's cleverly it's just a little conspicuously interesting that nowhere in this application does it say it is a wood sash.
Well, all right, hang on a minute, John. First of all, I think we could address that with our conditions so that we are sure that what we approve takes care of any ambiguity in the application. Janine, did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you. I completely understand John Reese's confusion, because that's where my first question was. I was not finding the material, and even those images gave me a little pause. But I will say, as I'm looking at it right now, page 5 of this last round of documentation, I'm seeing a note that is in a box that says all new window components to match size, shape, and material. And then in parentheses, it says wood of the existing units. And I guess when I say it out loud, my thought is, are we calling out wood with that little note?
Okay, thank you for that. John, does that help you?
I mean, where are you seeing that? Because I don't see that anywhere on page 5 of the stuff that they've recently submitted this time.
So page 5 has some window jam details, and it is, there's 4 of them, 4 details shown. It's the upper right, just beneath it. I'm seeing this little box of notes. And that's the first time I've even caught that little note. And I did the same thing you did, sort of searching around for the material callouts. Are you seeing that?
If I had my glasses on, maybe.
There you go. The letterhead is Davis Kane on that sheet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then you're looking at the mole. You're looking at the spread mole. Right
Is this what I'm looking at?
Yes, that's right. Just beneath that spread mole, there's a tiny little.
Here?
Yes, read that.
Yeah, but it says existing units. It doesn't say existing, it doesn't say sash. And that's what they're doing is they're replacing the sashes. They're not replacing the whole unit. And so that's where I'm I mean, I think last time we actually asked for a sample of this window. Why can't we have that?
I think we can have that, but I think we can also solve it by putting the conditions in that mandate it and because that's what they're assuring us is supposed to be anyway. And so there should not be a concern about us imposing that condition.
Well, but the issue is they could be a wood window, but they could be aluminum clad or vinyl clad with a wood interior, and then they could still say it's, you know, a wood sash, when in reality it's not a finished surface.
Right. Well, I think we can say not metal or vinyl clad.
No clad.
We can do that too. Yeah, we can do that too.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else? Brichet?
I have just one question. In the previous application that was submitted, there were some diagrams of the elevations because there are a number of windows, I think 218 windows on this property. And one thing that we requested, which I think you started to touch on, was sort of an evaluation of the windows in general to see what shape they were in. I think what was done previously was just kind of a broad brush highlighting and less investigative as far as the condition that they were in. So some of the conclusions that you drew about the time frame that these windows were in, I just was curious about the sample area for that. Was it something that you looked, how many windows? There are 218, that's a lot. And it's likely potentially that they may have replaced a small number and not others. So I just want to ensure that the comments that you're making are reflective of the majority of the windows in the property and not kind of a smaller sample group.
So, Mr. Duca, can you then tell us the extent of your investigation and how many of these you all have really looked at?
Certainly. This is a major renovation that we're doing right now, and we check every single room of the building. So doing so, we obviously check the windows and all the other aspects of the project. So I can assure you, maybe I shouldn't say all, but the vast majority of the windows display the same features that I just mentioned before. So it's kind of obvious to us that they were installed probably the same time, and the vast majority are in the same type of conditions.
All right, thank you for that. Are there further questions of the applicant from members of the committee? Raise your hand if you got something else you want to ask. Does anybody have any questions for staff? All right, does the applicant or staff have anything to say to us before we close the public hearing and turn to internal discussion? All right, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and we'll turn to discussion among ourselves. I guess my first question to the rest of you is do you think that I think we heard last month that we suspect that some of these windows may have been done after a fire in the later 1940s and others were done around 1981 or so. Do you think that the property that there's been enough years passed that the property that has achieved secondary historical significance and that it says that it's equally important as if it had been done in 1913? So sometimes historic properties achieve later stages are also significant. I'm not saying they are, but I think we need to flag that issue and think about it, because we've got between 40 and 70 years on these windows that we're talking about getting rid of. John, what are your thoughts?
Here's my. I really think that this application shouldn't be this hard. I know there's a lot more work in this kind of project than I'm sure any budget for these folks can do. At the same time, I'm still confused, because I've heard at one point in time that none of the windows survived the 1914 fire. Then I've heard that some of the windows, one or two of the windows, might be still left from 1914. I've heard that some of the windows were replaced in 1947, some in 1990. I've never, ever understood exactly from the applicant what those specific examples of those windows, to understand, for example, what was the dimension of the sash, what was and of that specific time frame of that specific window, just to give us an understanding of what is the most original dimension that fits the 1914 original building. And I just feel like I'm proving, that I'm favoring something or not favoring something without necessarily understanding where the baseline is.
All right. If without objection, I'll reopen the public hearing so that we can get the answer to that question from Mr. Duca. Mr. Duca, you heard the comment, and I guess I would translate it this way. To your knowledge, or based on your judgment, having examined all the windows during the course of this project, are there any of these windows that are original to the structure in 1913 or in the teens, whatever year that was? Can you help us there, Mr. Duca? Mr. Duca, I'm not hearing you if you're answering that.
Sorry, I was muted. Certainly, I can help you. I personally never said that there was any window from 1914 or any other time. All the windows are, to our knowledge, we check every single one, and they are all installed probably at the same time. I never said there were some windows, say, from 1914 or other year. So I didn't include that in our application. So I'm not sure where is this thought coming from. All I can say, it's like I said before, they are all in the same type of condition, installed at one point in time, we believe, after the original construction was done in 1914.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Does anybody have any further questions before I close the public hearing again? All right, and I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask Ms. McAuliffe if she would try a motion here.
I will try a motion. All right, I move that based on the evidence presented in this application and during the evidentiary hearing, that the committee finds that replacing window units and sashes and removing storm windows are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines section 2.7.5, 2.7.6. Guideline 2.7.6, thank you. And the in the following cited facts 1 through 13.
All right, is there a second to that motion to get it on the floor, and then we'll get down to the conditions that we may need to add? Okay, Hyde seconds the motion, And so we now have a motion on the floor, and I will turn to discussion among the members of the committee. And I will say that the language about units, sashes, in the first paragraph of the staff's comments, that's broader than actually what we're going to be than the motion that I think we're going to wind up passing, because we're going to focus on sashes and not really the rest of this, as I understood it. Comments from the rest of you?
Let me
Janine?
clarify, were there not, are we not now, and I apologize, I was not, I did look at the minutes from last month's meeting, but I had actually not been present for this one case. Did we omit the 8 complete new window replacements, or I forgot the count? Are those not happening? And now we're only doing sash replacements?
Colette here. Those are still included in this application.
Okay. So we have new window units, and and the majority are just removing the storm windows and replacing sashes only.
Yeah, thank you all for clarifying that. John Reese?
I'm just looking at because I made a note of this from the minutes of last month's meeting. And on page 35 of 37 at the bottom, it says, Mr. Reese asked whether every window in the building was replaced in 1947. Mr. Duca replied that not all were replaced then, some of them more recently. Some have plastic jams, so probably replaced in the 1970s or 80s. Hence my confusion. That's all I have to say.
To me,
Thank you for that, Janine.
yeah, what I'm hearing with that is that they have all been replaced, just not all at once. Some in 40s, some in the, 80s or 90s. So I'm not hearing that there are still original historical windows.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. I think we can make it come out where my sense of everybody is in what would be the following follow-up motion, most likely. Any discussion, Verche?
I guess my comment would be, as John is kind of recalling some of the requests from the last time that we discussed this, was, I guess, an updated elevation that sort of spoke to the history or the timeline of the replacement of these windows. But if it sounds like they were all replaced just at different points in time, I think it's worth discussing Nick's point about at what point does that become historic? Is it the 1914 moment that's historic, or is it a 1940s moment, which is now several years ago, historic? But beyond that, just in general, with regard to the write-up in these notes, I think that there is some blurring of the language between the use of the word existing versus original. And I think seeing that clarified in whatever we sign off on and we provide in the conditions will be important, because existing to me in this case is what's there 1940s or beyond, and original is 1914. So I'm not even clear as far as the window that they're proposing. Is it a replacement to match existing, or is it a replacement to match original? So I think that would be important to also clarify in the conditions for this.
Can the staff, Colette, can you help us here?
I'm Colette here. So I'm not sure if I can help you. The previous application last month's did include some specifications for what proposed windows will be. There was not information provided if that is an exact match to windows that are currently installed, or if the dimensions are more reminiscent of what maybe would have been installed in 1914. So if that is something that you are interested in pursuing, that would need to be conditioned. But you would want to think about how you would be establishing those dimensions. Would you be asking the applicant to try and look at photos to match? I don't know if that information is documented anywhere, is my concern in attempting to go back and, see if we can match something retroactively.
Are there no original drawings for this building anywhere?
There are not any in our files. If they do exist with someone else, I haven't seen them in what we have collected since it's been a landmark.
Tanya Tully here. I do recall from one of our earlier conversations with the applicant that the only drawings that they were able to find were some from the some of the 20th century, late 20th century, early 21st century rehabs, and nothing original. As you think about this, I would like to see you sort of walk through the facts, starting at maybe 5, where staff sort of spelled them out, and see what you agree with and what you feel like you've heard this time, to make sure that it's correct, regardless of what decision you make.
All right, then Janine and John, let's look down through these. Rochelle, you also, even though you haven't been talking as much, and let's see where we have concern.
I'll add that, fact number 5, if we are feeling as though the applicant has done due diligence looking into the condition of these windows and the float glass, et cetera, all the jam conditions that has been spoken to, I think we would agree that those windows installed right now are not original from the period of the historic period from 1913 to 1914. That's the way I see it.
I think we should, I think that material that the applicant brought out this time about the glass and the light, we should probably add as a fact, perhaps in that paragraph 5.
So that was adding that float glass, which exists now in the sashes, would not have even been available during the period of significance. So we know that I think he said that was invented in 47 or somewhere similar.
Right. So we know that that's not original glass. And I think if there is no wavy glass, then I think we all are aware that makes a significant difference.
One thing one thing I want to point out is in this photo right here in the new addition that they put in, as I understand, and maybe I'm just not hearing it right, but I really thought I heard Mr. Duca say that there are no wood windows left, and this is a wooden sash, right? I mean, this is clearly a wooden sash, and so I'm again confused as to what is there versus what Mr. Duca is trying to explain to us. I'm perplexed. I mean, I'm getting what I'm seeing in this stuff is that I really do question whether the sashes were replaced. Because what I think happened was I think the jams and the vinyl stuff was added in, and the windows were taken out and then put back in, and the cords were cut. And I can't remember if Mr. Duca told us, if this specific window had the pulleys and everything in it, because when I look at some of these windows at the top, where's it one I saw? Yeah. There's not evidence that there is a pulley system in there. There would be a hole there, and it's not there. And so, but some of them look like they do have the hole there. So, again, I just don't know if the research has been done enough to where I can fully support what they're proposing to do. Because again, if these windows are all consistent around there and they were all replaced, and that's what we're going to go for, then as Vishay said, that to me would be the period by which we take the standard. Why are we not being shown dimensions of that sash and show that this replacement sash is that exact same dimension? If we're going to go off the ones that are there, go ahead, Janine.
Well, I wanted to mention, so with what you're saying, John, potentially these could be original wood sashes that had the glass replaced. That could have happened. So the assumption that just because they have float glass does not guarantee they're not original. But I did hear, that they would have been modified for weather stripping and other considerations. So I guess the question I have is, like, at what point do we feel convinced that we understand if these windows were original, historical, replacement? And I will say, though, that the applicant is saying that he will come back with all the same dimensions, details, colors, materials of existing sashes and windows. So whether or not we see his dimension and a tape measure next to what's there, if he is matching the existing, I think his intention is to do that, and we should expect that would be done. But I think back to the elemental question of what are we wanting to match and go with, I guess it is still something we need to discuss.
Yeah, and I think that in the applicant's statements about the copper weather stripping, and I do accept the notion that it wouldn't have been there in 1914, and that sort of thing was in windows starting in the 30s, but probably not in the area pre-World War I. And but yes, I understand the notion that why would there not be some places where the pulleys used to be? And so if you are, there are two layers of concern here. One is, do we think we know what we're expecting to have happen? And is it just a question of trying to be sufficiently specific that staff can carry this out in review with them? Or is the concern that you think truthfully we need to do more walking around that building, and even if it means we got to come back in another month and to satisfy ourselves, or do we want to specify that you do the windows in as reflected in this or that photo in the evidence we have? That would be another approach, but I don't want to leave staff where they can't tell what to do. And I don't want to leave the applicant where he can't tell what to do either. And so I'm looking for a level of certainty. Vishay?
Yes, so I was just also kind of reviewing the staff notes 8 through 11, which sort of start to call out the information, the application that appears to be lacking in order to really make a decision about whether the windows are historic or not. So I don't know if are we at a point where we actually do, like you're saying, need a more thorough walk around, or we need more information just so that we can make a sound decision and take a stance on this. Just number 8, it's unclear whether sashes are replaced. Number 11, this level of documentation is needed if the sashes are historic. There's some holes, it looks like here, in the information that could be provided to us and to staff in order to make the decision, if I'm reading this correctly.
Comments from the rest of you to what Vishay points out? John?
I completely agree with Vishay. I just don't think the homework has been done here enough to satisfy my understanding of what we're approving and what we're not approving. And it may require that this be a window by window research issue, because again, I just want to know how many different styles of sashes are in this building. If not numbers, but different styles. We've never been told, are they all the same style? That's a different feeling for me than if there's one this big and then there's another one this big and that some of are wood or but nowhere in this application does it look like that research, that due diligence has been done. That's my concern.
I'm pretty sure there's several types, but and I think maintenance people over a whole lot of years have stuck up whatever they could grab put in their hands at a given time. And what we're trying to accomplish, and I'm not at all sure, but what the applicant's trying to do the same thing. We're trying to put in stuff and be consistent, and end up with actually a better product than we have now, but at the same time, maybe a level of energy saving while we do it, is what I think. So what is the sentiment here? Do you all want more detail associated with paragraphs 8 through 11 or associated with that, and maybe more of us getting out of the car and walking around looking at windows than maybe just do the parking lot the way I did it to this point? What do y'all think? I don't want to leave staff or the applicant in not knowing and guessing. And so I think we have the obligation to sort of spell this out. And if we're not comfortable with that, we can do that. And we're not comfortable that we can provide adequate detail so that staff can do it, then I'm going to need to defer it. I don't see what other choice I have. Janine?
I just want to clarify, because to me, the real initial decision here is just to determine if these sashes are historic. And I think once we have that determination, we understand, you can see on these staff notes on 10, on 11, what's in bold. If they are historic, we do need more investigation, 100%. And I think that is the question, is how are we going to make that determination? We don't have drawings. I don't know if they're out there. That would be fantastic. I feel like we would have seen them by now if they did exist. But that to me is the very first thing to identify, because I think it's a game changer if we don't think they are. And then it's how do we proceed?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Please.
I just think for purposes of context, it's worth restating the legal standard for the committee's determination. The legal issue is whether the improvement being proposed is congruous with the special character of the district or the landmark. In this case, the issue is what is the special character of the landmark itself. The windows, the issue's been phrased in the facts of whether the windows are historic or not. And I think the evidence shows that there may be different periods of time when features of these windows were installed. To me, to sort of flesh out whether the windows are historic or not, I think an appropriate interpretation of that is whether the 1947 windows or features installed as part of these windows at any time are contributing to the special character of the landmark as a whole. And it may be that only the original windows or window elements are significantly contributing to the special character, or you may find that windows that are 70 years old, or certain parts of those windows that might have been installed in 1947 or some other time, are significantly contributing to that special character. But I think it's important to just stay focused on what is the special character of the landmark as sort of grounding all of this. What contributes to that special character of the landmark as a whole, as far as these windows are concerned. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. That said, what are the thoughts of the committee? We've got a motion here, and we could vote it, and we could not. We could decide that if we think there are a substantial number of these windows that are of the 1947 vintage with all wood sashes, then maybe the best thing to do is to insist that the others. I'm pretty sure all this stuff that was put up in the 80s is just not that good and isn't what that we're trying to accomplish here at all. But I think that if some of these would appear to be of the 1940s vintage, here 70 years later, they've got secondary significance in the use of that property as the county home and the like, which continued on up until long after I'd been in Raleigh. So,
Mr. Fountain.
Yes, Tanya.
I just wanted to point out in fact 5, and just for the stated purpose that the landmark designation application currently states the period of significance as being 1913 to 1914. And I believe that is what you used in your determination regarding the cupola that was rebuilt last year or whenever it was. Just to be part of your conversation.
Yeah, I understand. But my concern is that in terms of trying to provide guidance on what we're going to put in there, the way we were headed with this motion, we would be approving anything in any version over the last 75 years. And I don't think we intend to do that, but our sense of it is there may not be any of them that are 1913. And so what are we to do given that? But the windows definitely do matter in terms of the historic structure. So comments from the rest of you. We got other applications to do. This is supposed to be a short agenda, but it's not looking like one. Don Reese.
Here's my proposal. Because there is evidence in the photographs of the pulley system in some of the sashes, I propose, regardless of what year it was put in, because obviously a pulley system is going to be probably as far back as we can get with the windows, that the new windows, or the new sashes that are to replace those sashes, match that specific profile, both in dimension and material and type. That's my proposal.
All right. Janine?
I want to just clarify. So John, you're saying the one way to move forward is we try to identify the oldest sashes / windows that are there, and then use that as the quote existing window that we are modeling the replacement sashes and units from. Correct. Okay. Yeah. I can understand that logic. I think the challenge that, we have if we don't go that way is we don't know what else to match. So.
Well, I think that if we just pick that one and that's the oldest and closest to the original, and we go with that, at least we standardize to that, and everybody knows how to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, is there a need to change anything in these findings of fact? We've got a motion here, and then we'll deal with the follow-up motion if this one works.
I think we said we did want to make sure we added the finding of facts that were discussed today by the applicant regarding the weather stripping, the copper, the float glass, those specifics.
Right. So we want to add that. We want to add that to one of those. One of those. I think we add it to 5, then it actually begins to clarify the question of what's historic and not. That said, anything else with respect to that motion?
Mr. Fountain, Tanya here. I would suggest that you add a fact that calls out the evidence that Mr. Reese pointed out about there being a photograph showing a pulley system. That way it will tie into your potential next
Okay.
motion.
All right.
I agree with that.
Okay. So we've got a motion here, and we've indicated that we're going to add the factual statements regarding the glass and the weather stripping and the pulley system and the references to the photographs reflecting that.
And copper flashing.
And the copper flashing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That said, any other discussion? I'm going to call on a vote on the motion as amended. Janine?
Aye.
John Reese? All right, his hand went up. Rashay Height?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. And so that motion carries, and we move to the next motion. And Mr. Millett is just so glad that he's not having to make a decision today. That time will come. Hey, Janine, you got the follow-up motion?
I do. I move that a certificate of appropriateness be approved with the following conditions. That we match the sashes and that we identify the windows with the pulley systems in order to set that as a standard for the replacement units and sash replacements to match exactly in design, dimension, detail, and color, and that they be all wood.
And not vinyl clad wood or
And not vinyl clad wood or cladding of any nature.
okay. Is there a second to that follow-up motion? Rashay Height seconds that motion. Thank you, Rashay. And so now we have the follow-up motion with a second. And you're okay to approve removal of the storm windows?
And yes, and approve removal of the storm windows.
Okay. Any discussion?
Can I make a friendly amendment? Can I make
All
a friendly amendment?
Yeah, let's hear it.
That a prototype or a sample of the actual replacement window be provided to staff or to the commission for approval to verify the exact match conditions that we've set forward.
Well, I think it'll be all right if you want that a prototype be provided to staff. I think we want to let staff take it from here.
Okay,
if we can do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I just want them to bring that sample to actually touched, felt, and understood.
All right, and I think that'll help provide clarity for everyone and prevent confusion or frustration. Okay, thank you for that. All right, I'll call for a vote on that motion. Janine McAuliffe.
Aye.
John Reese, Versailles Height,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and that motion carried. Mr. Duca, we thank you for your patience with us, and we hope that everyone now has marching orders so we can move ahead on this project. And we appreciate your cooperation, and we hope we'll get a good result on account of it. The next matter is 1003 West Lenore Street, file number 73-2020. Aaron Morton, will you explain the project?
Mr. Fountain, do we want to affirm the speakers first?
Yes, ma'am, we should certainly do that. And the speakers on that one are Mr. Bailey. And so, Mr. Bailey, if you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give to the members of this committee, no matter being heard, to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, if so, say I do.
I think you got the wrong one. It's
You're right. It should be number 85, and that would, no,
74.
70.
No, I'm sorry, you're wrong. 73. Don't even listen to me. 73.
And so it should be Ashley Morris, Lewis Downey, Jonathan Churchill. All right. So, Ms. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Downey,
Nick,
Ms. Downey.
this is Aaron. It should be Mr. Churchill and Ms. Morantz.
Okay, so the list I have is not quite right then. I got two sheets with speakers on it, but 1003 West Lenore Street has Ashley and Lewis and Churchill on it. So Aaron, is supposed to be somebody else?
I have Ashley Morris, Elizabeth Morantz, and Jonathan Churchill, and Lewis as well, who's the neighbor. Nick, you're muted.
Morantz was not on my sheet. That's what. Anyway, so Mr. Churchill, you say I do.
I do.
And Mr. Downey
I do.
and Ms. Morantz.
She's not here. She did not sign up to speak. I do believe Mr. Downey is speaking on her behalf.
I see. Okay. Well, that's why her name didn't appear on my list. So anyway, so that's done. So back to staff to explain the project.
Sure, I'll just wait for the presentation here. Sorry for the confusion on the affirmed. All right, this is case COA 0073-2020 for 1003 West Lenore Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. They are proposing to construct an addition, alter door and windows, remove deck, construct deck, remove tree, and plant replacement tree. Next. This is an image of 1003 West Lenore Street from West Lenore Street. Next. And we're going to walk you around the side of the house now. You can see the existing addition overhead towards the center of the structure. Next. This is another view of the backside of the east elevation. Next. A view of the rear elevation and the existing rear deck. Next. Another angle on that, you can see a small dormer that will be a part of the discussion that you couldn't see in the other photograph. Next. This is the west elevation and existing addition headed towards the front of the house again. Next. And we're back at the front. You can see the addition on the west side of the structure. Next. The staff suggestion is to discuss the scale and massing of the proposed addition in relation to the historic structure and to defer for a revised design. Next. And we have new information for this application, including a revised oblique angle mock-ups of the proposed addition, a written explanation of the design decisions related to the addition, confirmation that the requested tree removal has already happened, so that will be treated as an after-the-fact component of the application, and an arborist tree removal recommendation.
And Mr. Fountain, before you start, I want to clarify one more time. I misspoke when I said Mr. Downey would be speaking on Ms. Morantz. She is an applicant, but she did not sign up to speak.
Thank you. I got that. And Tanya, before I turn to the applicants, was there the addition on the roof? Was that done with a COA after at what point was that done? Is before the district existed or what? Okay, Janine says that it was.
Yeah, this is Erin. The applicant has provided information that addition dates to roughly 1981, which is a few years prior to the district designation.
Okay, to that. Okay, then we would love to hear from the applicants at this point. Ms. Morris, are you going to speak or who?
I can speak. We're happy to answer questions. We submitted more information about why the design was done. And I can run through those real fast. I don't know if you got those in time to actually read them or not. But happy to quickly go through them.
Well, why don't you do that? It may be efficient that way to just kind of walk us through what you got here.
Okay. The addition that we're proposing is an extension of what already exists to create a more functional space on the interior. The house has been through quite a few changes over time. Currently, there is an odd staircase that wraps itself around in the back and has strange landings, odd heights. The upstairs bedroom and bathroom that exists now, the bedroom has good heights, but the bathroom is pretty low, but still functional. The homeowners would really like to create that second floor as kind of the bedroom area. So adding that second bedroom and bath makes a lot of sense for the house and the plans. The things that we are doing are trying to bring most of the historic floor plan back, at least on the ground floor. The kitchen right now is currently vaulted, which makes it hard to add an addition out the back and then forward to reach the new dormer. It would cause a lot of redoing of a lot of stuff. The addition, we think, also provides symmetry to the house. It's a very symmetrical front. The 1980s addition kind of pushed the house off balance a little bit so that you're kind of looking at it going, what's going on there? We provided an updated Photoshop rendering of the addition from the street and the side just to kind of help give you an idea. I know that the addition would not, I know it's not appropriate if there wasn't an addition already done to the house. So I don't know if there's a way that we could tie it specifically to this house, just because of the things that have gone on to the house throughout time. I know that we're willing to work with staff. It is a very small addition. It's a bedroom and a bathroom. So reducing the mass, we'd have to figure out how to do that and still make it a viable project for the homeowners. And I know everybody's gone to go see the house. So, the prominent visual from the street and from the side is still the historic front of the house. There are a lot of different houses in Boylan Heights that have done different things over the years. I don't know if Jonathan wants to add anything, but those are kind of the reasons why we did what we did.
All right, thank you for that. And Jonathan, do you want to say anything? And then I'll hear from Mr. Downey.
No, I believe what Ashley said is exactly what I would say too. So thank you, Ashley.
Okay, Mr. Downey, we would like to hear from you and your thoughts as we look at this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am power of attorney for the owner of the next door neighbor, Nona Short. She's currently in a nursing home and is not able to attend, to this herself. I forwarded her the rendering of the proposed changes to 103 West Lenore Street, and she expressed her desire that the updates to the property be allowed. And then she volunteered that she found the top of the existing structure to be awkward. So it is my understanding that Ms. Short believes that the proposed changes would improve the property and also the historical neighborhood. And that's all I've got.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate those comments. There's probably not a lot of disagreement about the notion of awkwardness. So that said, are there questions from members of the committee? And in this circumstance, with all three of these folks on the line, you can direct your questions to Ms. Morris or Mr. Churchill, either one. Any questions, Ms. McCauley? None? John Reese, any questions? Rashay Height, any questions? Are there questions of the staff from any of you that you anticipate before we close the public hearing? Okay, none there. All right, then I will close the public hearing and we'll turn to a discussion internally. I guess, Janine, so how are we going to make the best of an awkward situation?
So I appreciate the motivation and sort of decision-making process that was kind of spelled out for us. My feeling is, yes. So we're dealing with this addition that was never approved by the COA or RHDC, and obviously it was an issue of timing with the district. I wanted to point out a couple concerns I have. A lot of those reasons for the addition that we heard today and in the submitted additional materials are not things that we really are not part of the guidelines, really. It was a lot of programming and interior kind of planning concerns, which I can appreciate drove them to want to have the form the way they did it. I just don't know that that is something that unless we feel like there's a significant hardship, I don't think that that's sort of part of our criteria. Also, there under the additions section on page 66 of our guidelines, this one line kind of strikes me. It says the form, design, relationships of opening, scale, architectural style, and selection materials, details, colors, and features of proposed new additions should be reviewed in terms of compatibility with the original building. And that's, I think, where I'm sort of struggling with the idea that to the original building, I wouldn't feel confident about this meeting our guidelines if I look at that entire form.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? John Reese, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I when I first looked at this, I thought, no way. But then when I really began to understand the conundrum and even thought about it in myself, how else could this be resolved? I really felt limited in the kind of ability to do anything. But at the same time, as we've said before on certain things, the addition that was done in 1981 would never have gotten through had they been part of historic districts. And it's unfortunate that the designer chose to do what he did. In light of that, the awkwardness is going to always remain, and any addition that is done to this place is never going to ever resolve that scenario. I have sympathy and in some regards am okay with what Ashley's trying to do here because I think it actually creates somewhat of a backdrop for the original front. Again, it's not at all what I would support on any other project in any other way, because in some regards this would elevate itself to that classic Camelback if it were to be done as all one piece on the house. So I'm of the ilk to say that I support it, but out of sympathy for what's already been done to it, for lack of a better way to say it.
Okay, Versailles?
Yeah, I would say that I would agree with John's sentiment on that. And even also kind of taking a look at the surrounding context and the neighboring structures and homes, that expansion, it does. I mean, I agree with everything that he said about how do you even address something like this? And it is there. So this in some ways actually remedies the awkwardness that's already been introduced on the property. And I don't see, that part of the home ever kind of coming down or being demolished. And then the extension having the same language and character of what was there in 1981, it is quieter. It does kind of recess itself back from the prominent facade that I think is the defining characteristic of the home. I would say I could support it also in the way that it's articulated in the application. I'm just trying to imagine in that instance, if it does become, a smaller mass relative to the moments that are already happening, how does that support the historic nature of the house? So that's kind of, I think it's cohesive in scale and in what's already there. So.
Further discussion from members of the committee. John,
I've got a quick question, Janine. When you, because I want to know more about can you say a little bit more about your issue? Are you talking about the massing, the height, or the details, or the window types? What specifically are you, because I want to learn from that.
Well, my feeling is there's something that happened on this house that we are now responding to try to remedy, sort of balance it. And the solution to me is not appropriate. So in scale, in the way that it looks from the street, like this house behind a house. I mean, if you drove around that neighborhood, you're never going to find a house that looks like that. You can see there's no precedence here given for this. This is very unique. Only time I could have, I may be wrong, but the only piece of this that feels like I would approve this would be if we consider this a hardship, like this house just has no other, it's got this unfortunate situation that they sort of bought with this kind of asymmetrical piece here, and that, you know, that's unusual that they are reacting to that. But personally, I don't feel like this meets the guidelines, again, because we're responding to something that would not have been approved anyway. That's where I stand.
Gotcha. I guess, you know, it does beg the question, what if they'd have torn that whole thing off and then rethought about another whole solution? I mean, it may be cost prohibitive to do that. I don't.
Tanya Tully stepping in here.
Oh, sorry.
It looks like we're starting down the design by committee route.
Okay, fine.
And it's really hard because you're all really great designers, but.
I get it. I'll shut up.
Yeah.
I shut up. I hear you.
Yeah. And I think really just to kind of emphasize my place here is, you know, I'm looking at just that, you know, historical structure, and then looking at the final 2020 kind of addition and feeling like that is not meeting our guidelines. That's the way I am finding this.
So what, in a nutshell, Ms. McAuliffe is saying is two wrongs don't make a right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. My concern was that even with the addition on the other side of the roof, the front view in this picture of the proposed that's in the application, it still doesn't look symmetrical to me. And it does, I can't figure out why it doesn't. I've looked back at the plans, but it's just something about the way it was projected here, because it ought to come out as being symmetrical, but it doesn't do it.
Nick,
but that in a way that just doesn't matter if the sense of it is that if the sense of the committee is that it doesn't work, and trying to balance an addition that never should have been there is not the solution here, and or it produces something that is incongruous, which is the test we're supposed to be applying. Of course, if what's there now is incongruous, I don't know that we don't usually do this on the basis of more or less incongruous, but that's what we're talking about. It would be more so. If that's the case, John, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I just got a quick question. Janine mentioned hardship. What is I'm not familiar with how that works within our guidelines.
I think I'll call on Mr. Raspberry to tell us how hardship comes into play in the context of application of the guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking for the UDO provision and haven't been able to put my hands on it immediately. If Tanya's got it in front of her, Tanya, please chime in. There's a provision in Raleigh's UDO that says that in the event failure to grant a certificate of appropriateness that's applied for, it would work a hardship to which the applicant would be subjected that other applicants or other property owners are not subject to. Basically, it means that, and hardship is not defined, but basically it means that if there are special circumstances that work a hardship on a particular applicant that are not typical and are not generally applicable to other properties, a certificate should not be denied.
I've almost got it, Raz.
That would be helpful because
I almost have it. Let me just find it. It has to do with the property, I thought, not the applicant.
Correct. Oh, absolutely. It relates to the property and the physical features of the property itself. I think that includes the structure, but it relates to the property.
And Janine, you had your hand up.
I did find we had been sent that from you, Raz, thank you, not long ago. Just the language in the UDO was from section 5.4.1 H3, and I can read it if it's helpful. But I just wanted to refer to that in case anybody's searching for it.
Thank you, Janine.
Yeah, go ahead and read it. You found it first.
Okay. It says the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness shall not be prohibited in situations where, owing to special conditions affecting the structure, such as topography, availability of materials, and lot size, but not affecting the historic landmarks or HOD-G, compliance with the historic development standards would cause an unusual and unnecessary hardship on the property owner beyond that which other property owners in the HOD-G or of historic landmarks would meet. So, does this addition that is a challenge to work with, is that a hardship, I guess?
And I believe, Mr. Raspberry, that it would be up to the applicant to make that case, maybe?
Well, it would be that there would need to be evidence that convince the committee members. So that's a different way of saying the same thing, I suppose.
All right, well, thank you. I think what I'll do here then is, I don't remember if I think I did close the public hearing, but without objection, we're going to open it for a couple of reasons. We need to hear from the applicants on two bases. One, you want to respond to this notion of the hardship, and what are your thoughts in the context of this project? And number two, in the context of the skeptical sentiment that you're hearing, would you like for us to proceed to decision, or would you like to defer it and give this matter some further thought? And I'll let you all talk about both of those things, but start with the hardship.
I guess I'll say to Jonathan to take on that, since they're the owners of the house. I mean, it's definitely the house is definitely more challenging to work with because of the things that have been done to it over time. I will say that. And then I did want to say one thing that Janine had said, that you can't find examples of camelback additions or houses in Boylan Heights. There are some, and they have been approved by the historic districts in a COA. And I can send that information too. This is a little bit different because this is part of the historic structure versus those are additions that have been put in the back, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, actually, while you're there, can you just, for my edification, let's see, how far back from the front face of the structure does this dormer apparatus begin?
Good question. Let me pull up the plan. It's a whole room depth plus the porch is when it starts. So let's see. I would say a good 20 feet. And we're keeping all the original fireplaces and trying to work around those as well.
Right. And I could tell that was a challenge also.
Correct.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Churchill? You want to say anything else?
Oh, there we go. Just got unmuted. Just hearing about this hardship thing, I'm not sure the best way to kind of make a statement that'll help our cause, because obviously, you know, you guys have said it yourself, you have to make a decision clearly on the historic appearance of the house. But I can say if it's helpful or not. Me and my wife just trying to make this fit in the best we can. And I know it's we've mentioned it's being awkward. So we really want to restore kind of a historic look to the house and work with what we've got, with doing the little we can. And if it helps you maybe visualize a little better, I know you mentioned that the mock-up renderings didn't look very symmetrical, but we had submitted updated versions where we've kind of worked that to better visualize how that would look, and just to make sure that you are looking at the correct one. I'm not sure which ones you guys have, but I think we submitted some newer versions kind of a few days ago.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And, you know, just remember, I'm the lawyer, not the design person. So I didn't see any of the others indicate that they were having trouble seeing how it's set up. So don't worry about that. Members of the committee, I'm thinking about a motion to defer so that Ms. Morris and the applicant can find us these precedents in the neighborhood that they're talking about, to see if that improves the situation or puts them in a better position, because I want them to have the benefit of every opportunity, and because they might get the answer they want, but if they don't, I want them to have had every opportunity, and I think we would all want that for our project. So if there are, what are your thoughts about that? Versailles nodding affirmatively on that. All right, then Ms. Height makes a motion to defer the matter to next month, to give the applicants opportunity to bring us the precedents that we're not seeing right now, and give us time to see all that. And there's a second from Ms. McCullough. And so we have a motion and a second, and there's discussion. Ms. McCullough?
I wanted to just, I feel a little bit like I opened up this idea of hardship, and I don't want to suggest that to the applicants and have them think that this argument is going to be a guarantee that we're going to approve if they were to make that argument, that they have a hardship condition. So I sort of want to just put that out there, because I didn't want to sound as though I was suggesting that was the kind of magic bullet here.
Right. But on the other hand, we certainly pay attention to precedents that are nearby, but for this purpose, most anywhere in Boylan Heights would work, I think, here, because that neighborhood is reasonably consistent in design all the way around. Okay, there's a motion and a second. And did you have something else to say, Mr. Reese? You ready to vote?
I just wanted a quick question to staff. If the existing carbuncle that's there now was removed, would they have to go through a COA to have it destroyed or have it taken off?
John, this is Erin. Any exterior change to the property would require a COA.
Even though it's not a historic element.
That's correct.
Okay.
Some things can be reviewed as minor works or summary proceedings, but any change does require the COA process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the motion to defer. Ms. McCullough?
Aye.
Mr. Reese? Says hand goes up, aye. Ms. Height?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And so we'll look at this again next month. And sorry for the delay, folks, but but you have a little bit more work to do, it would appear. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll move.
Before you go forward, this is Colette.
Yes, ma'am.
To Ashley and normally this is an application that we have sent to DRAC, but meetings had been canceled up until this point. So we'd like to have you consider attending a DRAC meeting that might be able to help provide you additional, design review and thought for how to move forward.
Well, thank you for that comment. And actually, we're prepared to move ahead next month. But if you want an additional, a little bit more time, then that's fine. You and staff can work that out, and it either gets back on the agenda or it doesn't. I'll let you. When you're ready, we'll be ready. Is where we are. Okay. All right. So that said, we'll move to COA 74-2020. Sabrina Percher. And Ms. Percher, I want to administer the oath to you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give to the members of this committee and the matter being heard to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you for that. And would the staff explain this application?
This is case COA 74-2020 for 807 West South Street in Boylan Heights. The request is to install screen plantings. If you look at the IMAPS image here, this is going to be an important piece of information for your discussion. You can see that the request is to have screen plantings along the rear property line, which is typically a fairly typical request. However, you can see that the rear property line of this particular lot fronts on South Boylan Avenue. There are 3 houses here with that particular condition, and that is the only area along South Boylan Avenue where this is the case. All other houses face front face to South Boylan Avenue. Next slide. This is an image of the front of the house from West South Street. Next. This is an image of the rear yard facing South Boylan Avenue. The CMU block wall is on the applicant's property, and the right-of-way begins a little beyond that. Next. This is the other side of the CMU wall looking back into the rear of the property. Next. This is an image showing the rear of the property from across South Boylan Avenue, so the streetscape, overall streetscape. Next. And this is supplementary staff evidence. Tanya, you can just click through these. This is a series of Google Street View images to show the red box is the applicant's property. You can see that there was a wooden fence on the rear of one of the properties. And then as you go up the street, there is some vegetation at the corner that belongs to the other property to the east or the north, depending on the curve. And so there's the wooden fence for the neighbor. Tanya, we can probably just come back through these if needed for the conversation.
Well, just for my edification, the blue house is the one up at the corner, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And staff suggestion is to discuss the location of the proposed 6 to 8 foot tall screen plantings.
Okay, thank you.
Information provided has been shown.
All right, so, Ms. Bircher, we'd love to hear from you here. Ms. Bircher, you may be muted. I'm not sure, but we're not hearing you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Right. So, we would just like to create a bit more privacy in our backyard. When we're in the yard, when we sit in the yard, we have the block wall, but we would just like to install the screen planting, which we propose as the Mackey. The full name is the Mackey podocarpus, which is a shrub that can create a screening effect. We're proposing to use the Mackey versus other types of shrubs because this is one that can easily be maintained. We can control the size, keep it within the 6 foot, height, as per the guidelines. So, we just want to be able to create the privacy. There's a lot of noise that from Boylan Avenue, especially during the day and in the evenings. Thursday night, Saturday night, Sunday night have become increasingly more noisy. So, it's just to allow my husband and I to have more privacy and enjoy our backyard
better.
One of the questions I had for you was, I thought I saw something in there where you said people were climbing the wall and coming in the property. Is that true?
We've had, kids in the neighborhood that run around and, I guess hopping into the backyard. We have also had, on the still rare occasion, but still people have tossed things in our yards. So we just thought also by having something a little higher than the current wall, that would help us.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions from members of the committee?
Real quick, is there a gate in this fence somewhere, or in this wall?
There's no gate in the wall.
Oh,
No.
Okay, I just didn't. I thought I saw one before then. And this specific plant will go up to 8 feet, right?
It appears that it can go up between 6 and 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I see no problem with going all the way up to 8 feet. To tell you the truth, I think it would be a nice backdrop for the wall itself instead of being a problem. I think it would be an asset.
Well, the issue is the guidelines, though. I think we better dig
I
around.
understand that, but I think that I don't see anything incongruous about putting a backdrop behind an existing historic wall. I mean, that I don't find anything incongruous with that.
All right, comments or questions from other members of the committee?
Staff would like to point out guideline 1.4.11. It's the reason you're having the discussion.
All right, thank you. We'll be sure everybody has. Okay, if everybody finds that, it's on page 25 of the guidelines. If you're looking at your copy.
I made a note about this when I was reviewing it. I did look at this and I was just curious, because of the lot situation, this guideline sort of has an emphasis on front and side yards, but they have a backyard which is street facing. So is this kind of one of those blurry lines because of the way this is written, or because it's street facing, we need to treat this in the same way that we would the front and the side?
So staff brought it to y'all because it is a blurry line.
I think whatever we do, we may want to make some specific findings about the unusual nature of this particular parcel. Janine?
I wanted to comment, I think it's from what we've been told here and thinking through that neighborhood, it sounds like these 3 parcels in a row are extremely unique, perhaps the only ones that have that condition. And I do see this as their backyard, essentially, not the street facade. So because I think there's a couple distinctions I think we need to clarify. One, if we consider this street facing, and because we've got different height expectations if we're at the street versus a back or a backyard or even a side yard. So kind of understanding how we define that in this unique circumstance. To me, it is a backyard. I do have a question for staff though. So let's say if we were to approve these particular plantings, and let's just say they grew 8, 9 feet. I mean, they're plants. They might trick us and have a growth spurt. I don't know, but what happens? Is there a mechanism for us to, enforce that they need to be cut down if we feel like they're too tall for what we have expected they would be? Which I think, to me, it would be great if they were, 6 feet. That fence right now, it says CMU walls 4 feet. I can't imagine another 4 feet of plantings, but, you know, I guess that's my question is sort of what, if that's a condition that we maintain this at lower than 8 feet, how does that get enforced? Or can it?
This is Erin. That is a good question. And part potentially of the enforcement conversation that we might have at a later date. Typically, that would be enforced when it's brought to our attention by a neighbor complaint, particularly because it is hard to monitor organic growth like that on a regular basis.
Tanya here, and just to add to that a little bit, if you made it a condition that it be kept at a certain height, then that would make it more enforceable if there were a complaint. All of the COA enforcement activity, except for during construction, generally is is complaint driven.
And I guess this is just another question that popped in my head. If the owners were to sell this property, this would be something in perpetuity we could enforce?
Yes.
Right. One of the things I think in terms of looking at this, I'm not seeing that I think we always look at the streetscape coming down. What does this do to the streetscape? Because they're concerned if we did view it as at the front, is what does this do to the overall appearance setback wise and the like along there? And given the growth in the area and the plantings between the sidewalk and the curb and the rest of this, as I looked at it, I thought that it could be just fine. Yes, I got to think a little bit about what is the elevation on the inside of the block wall compared to the elevation at the, because I don't know how much the soil is higher on the inside of the wall than it is on the outside, and in terms of how we measure this. But in some sense, it's a modest addition because it still doesn't, it still allows the back door of the house to be very visible. And so in that sense, what the applicant is proposing is what other people would propose, something even more dramatic, trying to get complete price. Further discussion from members of the committee. Anything else? All right. Then, Rashad, you want to try a motion?
Sure. This will be my first one. Here we go.
I think it can happen.
All right. If I say a wrong word, please correct me. Okay.
We're a team, okay?
All right. I move that a certificate of appropriateness be approved based on the information contained in the application and staff's evaluation of point A, installing screen planting is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 1.3.3, 1.3.9. However, the location of 6 foot to 8 foot tall screening may, I'm not supposed to say that part. Sorry. Yeah, stopping at the other part.
You can probably just stop at the semicolon after 1.3.9 and just drop the rest of that and
Okay.
keep on going.
All right.
Based on the following facts.
Based on the following facts, 1 through 8. And then.
Okay, that's a great place to stop right there. Ms. McCullough, you second the motion? All right, second the motion, and the motion made and seconded. Any discussion or additions or additional findings you think we need to make?
This is Erin. I'm sorry. Did I jump into amendments? Did somebody else need to make an amendment?
Well, we got a little more discussion. We'll see, Erin, but we're glad to hear from whatever your thoughts might be.
Sorry. I was just going to suggest that some fact be added referencing the particular nature and configuration of this lot.
Yeah, I think we need that.
I think I was going to just say something really quickly based on that. So what we're determining as a commission is that this particular fence line should be treated as a backyard situation as opposed to a street facing one. And I was curious, while I agree with this particular solution to that and it being vegetation and something that works well with the street front, does that also mean that someone could come in later and install something that was an actual fence that was 6 to 8 feet tall based on our backyard designation, which would probably be of more concern?
I think there would have to be another COA, but I think we need to find the fact number 9 that says something along the lines of the property is distinctive because it fronts on because it borders 2 streets, and that the rear street, Boylan Avenue, is a thoroughfare, and therefore it is distinct and is certainly viewed as a backyard in our judgment. That's probably, and y'all could have probably said that better than I did, but what else we need there? Of course, it's already broken with the existing wall, which looks like it must be really old because it goes around the neighboring property as well.
Kanya here. I would suggest that you remove fact 8 since you're not considering it as a front or side yard. I mean, you could leave it, but it's not necessary. And you could find to address Ms. Height's concern, you could somehow have a factor, make a statement about that this decision was based because it is vegetation, and then staff does have the suggestion of a 6-foot height, but that's for later. Did that make any sense? What I was trying to say?
Yeah, I got it. I think it's okay to leave number 8 in there to show that we considered it, but add in number 9 that we consider that this is should be considered as a backyard and is therefore that 1.4.11 does not apply. Are y'all okay with that? All right, are you ready to vote? Any further discussion? And we'll have to deal with excuse me, go ahead, Janine.
Well, I guess just to the point that we touched on about clarifying that the fact that it is plantings and not a fence is something that we're voting on specifically. Do we need to add that as another fact?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that, or we can change number 6 to say to say that the assessment might be different where it a fence rather than green planting.
Yeah, and maybe it's not actually as confusing as maybe we're thinking, because I do see, proposal A is installing screen planting. So I think we are voting specifically about screen planting.
Okay, thanks, Dan. I'm going to call call for a vote on the motion, which was seconded and then amended. Ms. Height? Aye. And Ms. McAuliffe?
Aye.
And Mr. Reese? Aye. And then I vote aye, so the motion carries. Ms. Height, you got a follow-up motion? What you do here is you make a motion that the COA be issued subject to the following conditions, and then you set out whatever they need to be.
Okay. I make a motion that the COA be issued
Approved.
Based on the following amendments or conditions. Approved based on the following conditions.
And that would be numbers 1 and 2.
Conditions. Do I need to read the conditions at this time? Numbers 1 and 2.
And do
in
we
addition,
need
well, they already have the height limitation in it.
Right. Do we need to add any others? All right, if you think we're okay with that, then we had that motion. Was there a second? Jenny McAuliffe seconds it. All in favor, Ms. McAuliffe?
Aye.
And Ms. Height?
Aye.
And Mr. Reese?
Aye.
And then I voted aye, so that takes care of that. And so good work, Ms. Percher. You got it done, and you'll work with staff from here. And thank you for coming, and thank you for being patient with us as we got to this place in the agenda. We're through with the applications, but I had asked staff to, since I was thinking we'd be a little bit earlier than this, but we certainly had to stay longer and on other occasions. Can you all tell us what's going on with the deferred applications, and is there any risk that somebody's going ahead and doing what they want without us?
This is Tanya. Colette and Aaron will answer that, but first we need y'all to approve the minutes from last month, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I'm sorry I skipped over it a while ago. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the July meeting? Everybody have a chance to look at them? All right, Mr. Reese moves to approve the minutes. A second from Ms. Height. I lost her picture, but we'll treat that as a second. And all in favor say aye, raise your hand. All right, got it. So the minutes are approved. And we'll go back to the question of the rest of the agenda and the deferred applications. Can y'all talk to us about those?
Okay, so Colette here. Let me look at the case numbers so I can be exact about it. For case number 11, 517 South Person, and case 37 for 1203 East Lane. Both of those, so as part of getting on the virtual meeting agenda, we ask each applicant if they consent to being heard in a virtual meeting. Both of these applicants did not consent and requested that they be heard once in-person meetings are held again. For the case of 517 South Person, that is after the fact in its entirety. So the work has already been done and was done prior to them submitting the application. As part of the language that we use when we ask if they consent to the virtual meeting, the 90-day decision clock is not affected if they do not consent to being heard virtually. So that is not a concern for either of these cases. For case 81, 308 South Boylan, they are not quite ready with the items you requested in regards to the signage. So as soon as they've pulled together those materials, they will reappear on the agenda.
The problem with that on the after the fact one is the system we designed to get through this pandemic doesn't work, and they're getting all the benefit because they might or might not get this approved under the circumstances, and at the rate we're going, it's going to be way on next spring before we get back to any live meetings, I'm afraid. But I don't have a concern about the sign on the Boylan Mansion. We know about that one. When they get to that place, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Would you elaborate more on the 90-day concern you mentioned?
Sure. So in our bylaws and the UDO, there is a time limit for when a complete application is received. There's a certain time frame that a decision has to be made before it is automatically approved. That's why when you look at the deferred applications, you see it says no vote needed. So because that 90-day clock has not started for these applications, you do not need to make a vote. If that were a concern, it would say vote needed, and you would need to vote to defer, and that would be the decision to comply with that 90 days.
So this is to safeguard the applicants.
Correct.
Okay, so that we don't just stall and never give them
Exactly.
response. Got it. Okay, thank you.
And in this
Yeah,
situation,
supposed
the
to
first
protect
two,
private property owners.
right.
Okay. And then I had asked staff to, I wanted to bring up again the question of enforcement and what are we needing to do and some direction, or what do you need from us in terms of direction to address some of the concerns that we've been having about maybe we're not hearing from the neighbors in terms of follow-up. And we just had one with the plantings, and we talked about how if the plants get to be 12 feet tall, we're not going to hear about it unless some neighbor, or do anything about it unless some neighbor complains. But there are, and maybe it doesn't really matter much on plants, but on some of these, their violations might be much more significant, and we still might not get a complaint. So I think I do want to figure out what we got to do to make the enforcement work, and so I want to keep bringing that up. Tanya, staff,
Yes.
y'all want to talk about where are you and what you need from us?
I'll start. I'll start with the driveway case from last time, where there were a whole list of driveways and whether or not they, received COAs. Only the ones on South Boylan had staff actually investigated whether or not there was a COA. So Aaron is in the laborious process of investigating whether or not any driveways were constructed within the last 7 years, which is the zoning time period that we have to work within in order to act on violations. I'm getting eyebrows from Raz, so maybe that's wrong. But anyway, to see when they were constructed, and if there are any violations, we will have, let them know that they need to file a COA, and it'll go through the process. And so this was, complaint based. All of the city's, zoning violations, and nuisance violations, it is set up to be complaint driven. That is in large part for historic districts. For historic districts, it is part of our partnership with the community. They rely on you to render, fair and unbiased decisions based on the design guidelines. We reach out to them periodically to, make sure they understand and agree to the design guidelines. And then they also keep an eye out and report what's going on in the neighborhood. You also, as commissioners, can certainly report things if you see them. We used to have some Oakwoodians back in the day who would, walk their dogs and give staff calls or emails saying what they saw. When staff is out on site visits, if we see anything that's egregious or underway, we will certainly flag it and pull it for, note it for a violation. There are going to be over the backyard fence, link activities happening. So as far as true work happening after the fact, the way it's working now is the way it has been happening. And it doesn't feel like it right this moment because of an apparent abundance of driveways that got constructed without a COA. We're still investigating that. But in the time period over the 13 years I've been here, there has not been an increase. We're not seeing a rash of after the fact applications. They tend to come in fits and spurts. So it seems like we may have more now, but it's, it's not perfect, but it's certainly not any worse than it has been throughout the years. Our zoning enforcement staff has been excellent to work with. We let them know, and they go out and they check it and they work with the property owner and tell them to file a COA. So we're getting people reporting things and they're getting followed up on. The issue of whether or not what is being constructed is what got approved. is a trickier matter that that is still an issue. It's for new construction. I know, and Colette, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think additions, staff is routed in the system, the plans, in order to be able to review and verify what is submitted for permits actually matches what got approved for the COA. So that's where we are now. I'm not sure what we need from you at the moment, but I'm going to let Colette and Aaron pipe up.
This is Colette. I would say that we are routed on a number of addition applications. I think that there are likely a few that are missed here and there. It's not a perfect system, but it has been getting better.
It's getting better because the inspection department is working with you better, or how's it getting better?
Colette again. So we have a new permit management system. It's still a work in progress, but it is vastly better to the previous one. There are still a few kinks, but we're working it out.
Okay, great. I would ask you all to pull the two things that are on my mind are that the house down on Williamson Drive, the contemporary, the Rothstein house is the landmark, and where the people flagrantly tore out the stone wall and the like in the front. And then the pedestrian alley, whatever became of that runs between Harvey Street and I can't remember what the other street is, only across the ditch from Cowper Drive. But that
Tanya?
over in Hayes Barton, I think we told them we wouldn't agree to close it, and the people had gone out there with a bulldozer and tore it all to pieces anyway. And I'm not sure it's in our jurisdiction exactly, but whatever became of it.
Tanya here. I'll let Colette investigate and follow up on that. I will follow up on the Rothstein house, largely because the files are sitting right here on my dining room table / office, and they can't, Colette and Aaron can't do it because they don't have the files. So that is, that needs to be addressed and compare what got approved versus what work actually happened, and then move forward on that. And then there was also work that just happened without a COA.
Yeah, because that's been probably close to 2 years ago now, and I don't want it to be forgotten because of the turnover among us.
I think that could have been the first meeting I attended, because I sat next to Jimmy and, really got a dose of what happens when we're not, the frustration with what we put out there not being followed.
So that was a pretty dramatic one, which is why I happen to remember it. But if we have others, and if staff needs us to help in some way, then fine. But I assure you, if you go down Williamson, there is not a hint that there was ever a wall there at this point. And it was bad enough that we had to and did approve that addition because it was far from ideal in terms of design. There's an awful lot of owner pressure on the architect, I thought. So, is anything else by way of postmortem in this thing?
One last, I see you, John. I just want one last thing, and then I promise I'll stop talking for the night. Harold, there is a packet of information we have not sent you yet. You will get a hard copy of the design guidelines. You will also get a cheat sheet that will help you with these motions you keep hearing happening. We don't just, have you make it up as you go. There is a cheat sheet, and I am going to schedule another COA training that will be the first one for you. Janine, indicated that she'd like a refresher also. So I'm thinking that we actually do something that takes, a couple of hours and, sort of gets into some of the issues that have come up during this meeting, the basics of quasi-judicial, and see if there's anything specific that, Raz wants to point out. Also, staff can sort of do a quick and dirty on some of the high-level things that come up pretty frequently that are regularly approved, such as different types of substitute materials, and it'll also, which I think some of you already know, a little bit how we organize the staff reports. And I'll send out a doodle poll with some possible dates and times, and find something that works for all of us.
And if you want to do it face to face but distanced, most likely we can get room here and do that. But we can try to do it virtual also, which it has its advantages. So whatever you do, but do the Google poll and we'll see how it comes out. Has anybody else got anything they want to say? John Reese, you had something?
Yeah, I want to ask the question. Is it appropriate or possible that one of the committees that we have on the commission is a follow-up committee that do some of the things that we're asking staff to, or other folks to go out and kind of check on existing projects, that whether or not they followed through, whether or not they've kind of done what they're supposed to? Is that something that we can set up as an actual committee?
A couple of issues about that, John. First of all, we'd be interested in whether the staff got it handled and doesn't need us. The other thing that would concern me as a lawyer is that if it's a potential enforcement issue, is it something that would wind up possibly coming back here? And if so, then are we getting information that maybe we're not supposed to have? If it's just a matter of looking at it and maybe flagging it so staff can look at it in greater detail and be sure, and then hand it over to the inspection department, then maybe we could be helpful in that way. Because we have done that on demolitions by neglect, or some property owners just letting a property in a district go to rack and ruin.
Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly the kind of format I was thinking to be, is that it would be a report to staff to kind of take action or investigate something, but
it's not currently in your purview. You have a long list of, of authority that you do have, but that level of following up of a project in process is not. That's really staff, and it's very specific when you're allowed to go on private property. The demolition by neglect that Nick was talking about is in a whole different section of the code. Not that we, wouldn't appreciate the help, but I don't see that as a viable solution.
Okay, Rochelle, you had something else you were going to say?
Yes, I was just going to ask to be a part of that doodle poll for those trainings. I know we sat in on, it sounds like what we may have done, John and I, and Susan, I think, was a little bit more abbreviated. And now that we've got some context for how these work, I think I have a lot more questions.
Absolutely. This is for all y'all.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so the COA has got a lot of stuff that a person that wasn't on COA wouldn't need to bog down with. And so, yes, this is more detailed than the more general orientation, I think. So, okay, anything else? All right, then I'll declare this meeting adjourned. And if you're supportive of it, then you can hit the leave button and we're done. Take care. Great seeing everybody.
Thank you all. Good night.